Body. So, hi,
Hello.
welcome
Hi.
to the show.
I try to turn on the recording to start this radio show that Perry sponsors when the energy is most balanced and most up, most serene, happy, joyful, that kind of thing. And then we go on the show and go on one of these journeys because we want to start without the usual thing most people start with, which is fear of the present and the future in one form or another. That's the biggest problem people on earth have with knowing or recovering who they are or what they once knew before they were born here is fear that they might have to go through again what they've been through before. This isn't the fact, but it's the fear. Fear is an artificial emotion. Where did people pick it up? If it's artificial, how did it become so real to people? How did it become the entire focus of their lifetime or lifetimes? The creation of fear did not happen last year or a million years ago or a billion years ago. It was brought into the lower worlds when the lower worlds were constructed. What do I mean by lower worlds? The lower worlds of space and time, made of molecules and atoms on different vibrational levels, all the way up different dimensions, be above the planet Earth and physical worlds, but below what certain esoteric groups call the void. A big area of energy somewhere way up there in the dimensions that you can't cross. And they think that is the place of the supreme being. You can't go any further. This is a self created illusion. People want that to be the final place because they're terrified to go beyond it in reality. It's fear that supports other people with fear to stay stuck, basically in the mental plane. Fear that keeps a person from, as an atma, moving across that void and into the upper realities where the energy changes dramatically. We all come from beyond the void as individual beings, and we're all destined to return in full awareness. What I mean by return is be aware of our presence there, while we're also aware of our presence running forms in the different worlds and different planes at the same moment. That's the nature of an awakened atma. Atma is what people on earth call soul without knowing what it is, what it looks like, how to move it around. They think in terms of the atma being the brain or body or the personality they grew up with, and it isn't. It's not. But it does have the ability to motivate, animate, charge, put energy into a body and make it work. A brain that in a body that develops in a baby till they're an adult does not run the body unless the being is charging it, like putting a program in a computer. Now walk over here, go to the store. The body gets up and goes over here and walks over to the store. And then it sits there and does nothing unless you tell it to come back here. This is what people don't understand. They're actually a being running the body, and they're not a body. They're not a brain. They're not a nervous system. They're not molecules. They're not protons and electrons or neutrons or nuclear energy. They're not any of that. But they are very much like the energy that's out in space between planets and galaxies, which is not a void and is brilliant energy that human eyes can't detect normally. And it runs all the way up through all the dimensions in the multiverse, and everything floats in it. The magic of little planets swirling around to create a little vortex so it floats, creates a gravitational field. And they have to go around the sun, and it's spinning around to create a gravitational field. And the galaxy's turning around to create a gravitational field. It's basically suspending itself in another energy that supports it. And that energy is not negative or positive or either one. It has no opposites in it. You can't attack it. You can't destroy it. Nuclear bombs will not affect it. That's the kind of energy more advanced races that travel the stars and beings that travel the multiverse utilize. They know. People on Earth are capable of knowing. They're just terrified of it. Think about it. Why are people so afraid to know? They're afraid to get out of their body. Demons might get them. They're afraid because they're thinking in terms of the body being hurt if they get out of it. That's what they're really thinking. Or they're afraid to remember other lives they've had on other planets because it would throw everything they believe in since they were born out the window. And they'd have to let it go. They're afraid to do that. And yet, ultimately, all beings have to go through this process of letting go of limitation, fear. Fear is artificial. It's not meant to be permanent. It's a kind of a teacher. It's not a very good teacher, I might add. The way the lower dimensions of time and space work, they work on an energy that splits itself into two currents that are normally supposed to be woven around each other to create poles, to create the matter in the lower worlds, what we call the worlds of time and space. Time and space is only relative to matter, to DNA, to bodies, to things, to planets, to suns, and the perspective of beings, what they have in viewing it. But the being or the consciousness viewing time and space is not time and space. Most beings have been long since lost in incorrectly perceiving or believing that they are part of time and space. But that's the body, not them. There's a big difference. So is my work about extraterrestrials? Most certainly it is. Because the majority of what people call God does not live on planet Earth. Never has and never will. The majority of life out there is on other countless worlds beyond count, galaxies beyond count, and dimensions massively vast. Most of what people call God is not living on this earth. And they are just as vital and important to the source, prime creator, as anybody on earth is. No more, no less. So you see, it really comes down to what people believe, how they limit themselves. Because the real secret is this omnipresent energy out there between all things that float in it, like planets and suns and galaxies and different dimensions and the doorways between the dimensions. They all exist in another type of energy field. And that energy is like the energy that makes up what people call soul. The energy out in space, you can't record negative thoughts and emotions in it. Go out there in a space shuttle and get out in a spacesuit and send all the thoughts you want out there. They're going to stay in your helmet because that energy doesn't have any way to record or store positive and negative things. The atmosphere that surrounds a planet doesn't store it either, but it confines thoughts and feelings in wavelengths within the atmosphere. It means the people on that planet are responsible for the crap they're putting out every day. It's floating around the atmosphere, bouncing off the ionosphere like a radio wave. People are vulnerable to this, depending on what their attitude at any given moment is. A lot of people are picking up and acting out scenarios that happened in Rome. They might go postal and start shooting innocent people. They picked up on something that's out there that happened some other time in history, and they're acting it out again like a zombie. People are vulnerable. Most people are not vulnerable in this way. Most people are strong enough not to succumb to that kind of acting out some other negative scenario that happened in history. And some people, a few, they go postal because they just can't handle the pressure of knowing that they don't remember anything on this earth. They really don't. This just means that people on earth suppressed have the awareness of the multiverse in their own being. So is my work about extraterrestrials? Yes, most definitely. But here's the kicker. Everybody living on Earth today is an extraterrestrial in origin. They did not originate on this planet. Human bodies did not originate on this planet. They did not originate on this planet. The mammalian and plant life and trees and most of the things you find here did not originate on this planet. They were brought here in a history people can't comprehend right now on Earth. They've long forgotten. Not just an ancient Earth history, but a galactic history as well. And that's just the physical universe of the dimensions history. There's also a multiverse history, a history of the astral and causal and mental and etheric planes below the void. There's history to all of that. We're meant to travel and run bodies in the lower planes to one day return to the source with new insights, but to share with that source about how to make worlds and people and things better here. That's really why this is all taking place. The mystery is solved when you finally hear that answer for the first time, spoken to you, when you may not have heard that for 1 billion years. Long, long ago. So that means the atma, the real being running a body, is living in a moment in eternity, outside of time and space, not in it. But it believes it's trapped in it. It believes it's a body and a brain that can perish. Bodies can. The being running that body cannot. So if a being becomes aware of what they are and have always been that has never been a body, they begin to gain some mastery over physical matter. That's why we're here. So, and this it holds true for beings on any planet, in any dimension, in the entire multiverse. The same truth for all is true for all. In the upper worlds, what we call the higher realities, dimensions above what people call the void, there really is only one law. Love and do as you will. But it doesn't mean love in the sense of what people think that means on Earth. Love in that reality means respect for all life. To be buoyant, to be above the negative nature of the lower worlds as a being, to function in co-creative harmony with the source behind all life. To do that, we have to withdraw our focus of imagination, emotionally driven, away from things that are negative. We have to have a way to focus our energies into something only benevolent when we get into trouble, when we get into a depression, we get into thinking negative thoughts and emotional thoughts, when we start seeing the world as an Armageddon, a doomsday, or we start seeing the present and the future with fear. The only reason you see all this on the news and on the internet and everywhere else that's got all this negative fear in it is because the people behind it are putting that out to each other, or it would not be there. That means the leaders on Earth are in fear. Classified people are in fear. The people not in the know, not classified, are in fear. They're in fear of more advanced races, good or bad. They don't want to tell the people because it's such a delicate, dangerous thing. But here's the thing. We're all in this together on this planet. You can classify stuff and be an elite and keep it from everyone else, but it doesn't change one iota the survival or destruction of the planet. If people are left in dark, the possibility to self-annihilate is much greater. If they're told the truth, the possibility to create a transformation with the help of beings from other worlds increases dramatically. It's complete basic law of physics 101. Every action creates an equal but opposite reaction in space-time with molecules and matter and neutrons and protons and electrons and thought forms and thought waves, an emotional feeling behind those thoughts. And behind the thoughts are mental image pictures, three-dimensional images of what we're thinking and seeing. It is that communicates to this omnipresent living energy that's out in space and tells it what to do with us. Literally, it is a co-creator with us. We are beings, individual, as part of it. We're meant to co-create with it ways that are constructive and uplifting for all life, not live in fear and terror moment by moment throughout our lives about everything. That's not normal. That's not the nature of a human being. And by the way, a human being is not a human body. The first half of the word human does not mean human body. Human, woman means what they're doing with the hue. And that is carried out by the actions and consciousness of the spherical nature of energy that comprises the individual being or atma that runs a brain and body. It is that imagines. It is that writes books and makes films that are way beyond its capability of what it learned in this one lifetime in school or college. Where does a brain that's never learned that get that from? People don't ask the right questions. They don't think about this deep enough. They can't possibly get it from the lifetime they're living here. So where does it come from? All that wisdom, the depth of stories that you see or could read about or watch in films. Where does it come from? Beings like us, running bodies, do this thing we call daydreaming that people take for granted and have no clue what they're doing with it. It's a part of the creative imagination, which is not made up in a human brain at all. It's the ability of the atma, the spherical being running that brain and body, to look into the universe, because it's not made of matter. Neither is the energy it connects to telepathically. And it's its ability to connect to that which operates beyond or outside of time and space, to see everything in time and space and beyond time and space, and to know it, to understand it. We just plug ourselves into it. That's how we are meant to function. People on Earth do it, but for the most part, they do it unconsciously. They don't know that's what they're doing. So they think they made up these great stories in their little brain. They didn't. And some people are terrified that they have to give up that illusion. All it means is they would have to admit to themselves that they're getting all this information, all this way beyond the capability of one lifetime, from something beyond this earth that they're looking into and seeing. They go into a kind of trance state when they're writing. Almost like sleep at night, when the body's put to sleep and you leave the body. They don't know that's what they're doing, but they're doing a kind of meditation. So impassioned by what they're writing about that they're actually seeing, imagining what they're writing about. That's not taking place in here at all. This brain helps them actually type, write, speak, and get it down on paper, but it's not coming from here. If children were taught how to use the creative imagination and what it really means, who they are as a being, not a body, when they're born, this world would be changed overnight. But nobody knows how to do that on this planet yet. So it has to be, practically speaking, from God, if they want to say that, it has to be imported to this planet from beings who understand it, who aren't stuck in these limited concepts about the universe. We have to be humble enough and respectful enough of other life to allow them to help us. If you want a tyrant to help you, they'll help you whether you like it or not, their way. If you want the kindest, most wondrous advanced races and beings out in the universe to help us, they're going to want us to ask them respectfully. It's just that simple. This is what disclosure is, right on the razor's edge. That's how close we are. If people on Earth could get a little bit swung towards the constructive and positive, they would get the courage up to ask for that help. And I'm talking about the leaders on this world and the classified community and its scientists who can't tell their other scientists what they know about life from other worlds yet, because it's so highly classified. So this is all it is. Earth is actually It's possible for this world to be transformed, but not by the people on this world by themselves. And the reason for that is simple. The people making decisions on this planet right now, and they know it, are making decisions based on fear of the future, fear of the unknown, fear of extraterrestrials, good and bad, based on their own aggressive nature, their own wars, their own little planetary cultures and beliefs. And that's how they're making decisions about whether or not to work with beings who have left all that behind eons ago. And they don't think they're superior to us. We're the ones that have the problem in attitude. People here. These beings have been around trying to keep us from nuclear war and helping out without forcing their will directly on us for decades and decades. And you'd think people would start to get this by now. Disclosure is inevitable because it's been mandated by hundreds of millions of planetary systems to straighten out life outside of Earth. And Earth is next. So we're very lucky in that respect. We're not alone in the universe, and when we can get our humble act together, doesn't mean prostrating yourself on the ground under the feet of some other being or a human being from another world, because there are many, or anything else. It means working with them, inviting them, being trustful of ourselves to work with them. Because so far in all these decades since World War II, they've never threatened taking over this world. And the beings that tried that were stopped, but not by people on Earth, from people outside of this Earth. That should be respected. So, the beginnings of these radio shows are telepathic. What do I mean by that? If you look up the dictionary, they try to lump it in telepathy with the ESP and psychic powers because they don't really understand it, so they throw it in there. They don't understand the psychic powers either. Psychic powers work with the energies of the four lower main divisions below the void. Etheric, actually 5. Mental, causal, astral. Astral, all emotion comes from there. Physical universe, physical planet Earth, physical bodies on Earth. It's a big creation. And it's not on one level. It's on multiple levels. What people call heavens. In the lower worlds, they're not heavens at all. They certainly appear better than we have on Earth here, yes, but they're not final places. So beings in other worlds in the physical universe, so many of them that travel the stars, understand the basics of what they are that isn't a brain or body. And they understand because of that the ability to work with the zero-point or toroidal energy of the universe. But they have to work with it knowing it's not material, nuclear nature, or they're going to get it all wrong. They're not going to be able to work with it because it will not work with them that way. No matter what people's egos think. That's a big creation and we're all floating in it. We got to get along with it somehow. And along with beings from other worlds. It's not that people don't exist on other planets or there isn't more advanced life out there, because there is. It's the ego, spiritual vanity really of people. The fear people have, I would say, behind that, of mixing it up with more advanced races that scares them. And that's not because of those more advanced races, because they don't trust themselves. They're scared that if they let go and trust in the greater universe, that they'll make the mistakes they've made in other lives they don't want to remember on this earth. Those things don't apply to now, no matter what people think. We're in a new universe, a universe that is changing from the core of it, from the source outward through all the planes, because it's beginning to create things a little differently in the lower worlds of time and space than it ever has before. What does that mean? It means, well, I suppose you could say the experiment of good and evil is being done away with because it's failed. That system of teaching beings to co-create with the source has never properly worked. In fact, it's trapped more beings than it's helped. So, if you get rid of this experiment of evil and good, you have to have something better to replace it with. You could say that the last several 100 billion years have been leading up to this point because something has been found to do just that. And it comes from us sharing our experiences in all these lives and all these planes with the source, whether we know it or not. We are co-creators with that source. This thing people call divine spirit, its purpose is to co-create, bringing things into manifestation we imagine. It is a power, a one power. We aren't that one power. We're made of the same thing, like a drop of it in a mighty ocean of it. But we're meant to co-create benevolent, uplifting, beneficial things in it, and it brings that into form. As a teacher in the old way, it will bring into form whatever you imagine. Fear of the future, fear of death, love of family, being prosperous, both at the same time and simultaneously. That's the trap of using the imagination in two ways instead of one. And that's all I have to say on that. There are untold numbers of master teachers and kind beings, many of them human, not all, beyond this earth that can help every single person on this earth, governments, religions, and everybody wake up and have real living energy and intelligence come into all the forms they believe in. People will drop what no longer works when they have something better to take its place. That's all there is to it. What's better that can take the place of belief is direct knowing certainty, direct knowing experience. This is the natural native state of each being, what people call soul. But it's long forgotten about this. So the whole thing about extraterrestrials and traveling outer space, underneath it all, the purpose for it is to know and become a co-creator with that source. While you're running bodies, running spaceships, being able to get out of your bodies, you do it every night when you go to sleep anyway, knowing it. That's all that it takes to switch everything in a new direction. I work with this through one of the words in English on Earth that did not get created on Earth, neither did the languages of this planet. Neither do the races that are on this planet originate here. They originated and evolved into the form they have, whether it's skin color, slanted eyes, or yellow skin, or Indian, or white, or African American, on other world systems, out in the universe, and not just in the Milky Way galaxy, long ago. And were imported to this planet in a history many, 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 many millions of years in the past. The dinosaurs died out about technically 65 million years ago, the biggest ones anyway. So what's been going on Earth ever since? There's a whole history there that can be unraveled or understood. And here's the thing people need to understand on Earth, and they can if they want to. There are beings out there that people on Earth don't know about that recorded all of that history. All they want to do is show people the truth. It's not to put a blight on their beliefs or religions or political beliefs or anything else. It's to help them know their place in the universe as beings and how to co-create successfully with beings from other worlds and other realities. That's inevitable. That cannot be prevented from coming to this world now. There are people in classified areas, many good people that understand this now. Disclosure must take place. And they've been told that it's inevitable. You know, there are people who agree that it shouldn't happen until people aren't going to riot in the streets and hoard toilet paper because of fear of aliens. Since when have great cockroach people in big ships come down and bombed everybody to death on Earth? That's movies. They've never done that. Why? Are there no tyrants out there? There are. Most of them aren't, but there are some. What's kept them from doing it is what people should be asking on this earth. Not the rest of that malarkey. Because, look, we're in 2021. We haven't blown ourselves up. And I can state with knowing certainty it wasn't because of people on Earth that prevented that. That should be a big heads up for people in classified areas and in governments to start to acquiesce, not give up their free will or decisions or anything else, but to cooperate in harmony with other beings who have figured out genetic science, who have cured diseases, who have gotten rid of microbial life that is in competition with higher life forms, that know the science of cleaning up sewage systems and air and water. This is not new. It's most ancient understanding how to harmonize a world. It just needs to be imported to this world now. If people are too stupid, too ignorant, and too fear-ridden to somehow get up the courage to request from the very thing they worship all day long, God, which is represented in all those beings out there too, they're going to have to get to a point where they embrace having them come here and help us out. It's just that simple. Think of it this way. Other worlds that have reached the critical point of self-destruction like Earth is now survived it because beings at the last second intervened, not to take them over, but to uplift them and make them part of a greater world systems of beings. That's it. Okay, so the first half of the word human, imported to Earth, is hue. Why is that important over all of the words? Well, it isn't in itself. It's two letters, H-U, hue. But it's a round hole sound that vocal cords in human beings, let's just take people on Earth in all races, unless they don't have vocal cords or they're born deaf, or even deaf people, even blind people can understand the hue because I work with them. And I know they can. Once they get the idea and once they understand what it is, they can work with it. Okay, so it sets up a vibration that was set up in the beginning, and it runs through that omnipresent energy out between the worlds and systems that's out there in space. Stuff is out there. I'm not speaking lunatic philosophy here. That energy between planets and galaxies that float in it is out there. It cannot be denied by anyone. And we have an ability to communicate with that energy. It's not nuclear, it's not atomic. Think about it. What is it? It's energy, but it's behind the things that are constructed to float in it. It gives them life, it supports it. We're meant to be thriving people, running bodies, and knowing what we are that is not a body. Not just believing in stuff forever, life after life. There's always doubt and fear mixed in that. If a person wants to see into the multiverse, sitting in a chair on Earth, people do it all the time when they write Star Wars, or when they write Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, or when they write TV series like Stargate Atlantis or SG-1 or X-Files or any of these things. The writers are actually seeing stuff going on somewhere in the multiverse, in the past, in the future, not so much the future, but in a parallel dimension or on other worlds. They don't know that's what they're doing, but think about it for a minute. The stuff that is written about and put in film and in books cannot be made up by one human brain that grew up educated in one lifetime, because there's no university on this planet that teaches how to write such things. So where does it come from? I will leave everybody to ponder that, because it's worthy of the effort. Just knowing it can change the way a writer thinks about what they write about, where it comes from, makes them question their limited concepts of things, so they can more easily jump into understanding and comprehending, which they're capable of, the multiverse. So the hue opens a doorway through the pineal gland in the center of the brain, or pineal gland, the controlling gland of the human body, center of the brain. The being runs that nervous system and that billion-circuited brain nervous system through that gland. What's inside it? Little rods and cones, a liquid, but it's kind of a link between different dimensions. It's part of the DNA of the body, yet it is also capable of channeling that energy, which is not physical matter. So when we work with it, the hue opens a doorway through it. From the you person, the atma, the spherical being, the soul running it. And it opens a conscious, how do I put it? It opens a connection to the omnipresent energy in the universe that says, I'm ready to know. And it reciprocates right there. And it starts to draw that person back to the source from whence they came while they're living out their life. It's an experiential thing, and it has to be experienced directly by each individual. That makes them the knower instead of the believer. Belief's a fine place to start, but a terrible place to end up, because it should lead to knowing and having wisdom and co-creating with the source they claim to love. We are capable of having such experience on this earth, even the way the world is. Most beings that know this stuff from other worlds, and those that are walking around on this planet, do not run around and shout about it in front of all these fear-ridden people who would attack it as a threatening gesture. Most of the work that's done with people to get them to remember who they are takes place when they're out of their bodies at night, when the body's asleep. And that is speeding up, ramping up. When I go into the hue, I send out a number of hue tones on different pitch levels for one reason. First, it connects to the omnipresent living energy between all things that is not nuclear. This is something we all have the capability of to do when we're aware of it, why it exists, and how to utilize it properly. Because that nature of that energy is to reciprocate. When you start showing it, you're beginning to understand this again. It begins to work as a teacher or a healer or an energy that can work miracles, really quite literally, and change things. It can change us. But we have to co-create, putting into it that we're not only ready, but understand it. And then it can reciprocate in this way. And when it does this, it comes through us always for our benefit, but also for the benefit of all life around you, including the entire planet. It is a movement of energy that cannot be held or bound or grasped in someone's fist. It moves constantly. When I begin the tones, it's a telepathic function. It means that you, the being running that body, not the brain, begin to get your body to go into the trance state called sleep that you put it in every night anyway. None of you can claim you don't know how to do this, because you do it successfully every night. But for the most part, people are unaware they're actually leaving their body and going to other realities. They've never been trained from birth to bring back the memory, which faculties of being to use to bring it back. So it's all hodgepodge, mixed up with dreams of fear they've had during the day. Sometimes they get a clear recording into the physical brain and body when they come back. And it's one of those dreams of, I was flying my physical body in another plane. I got news for you. On another plane, you were actually flying a physical body. And that reality doesn't have the same laws or work quite the same as Earth. So it's confusing if you're not trained to bring that back here and think you're going to make this body fly. Well, you could, but on a planet like Earth, if you did that, the first thing that would happen is classified people would clamp down on you and haul you off to some laboratory, because they'd want to know how to pull it apart and figure out how to make it work, make weapons or something. The world's not ready for people to be flying around. They could do it, but everybody'd have to be on board with it, so to speak. Okay, I'll begin those tones and then we'll go on a journey. Imagine first, before we start, someone you love and respect, you're grateful they're in your life, a person, place, or thing, but make sure that it's genuine, childlike, not childish, childlike. That's the eagerness to know and understand, to learn, to experience the joy and wonder of cognition, of grokking something, of knowing something again with certainty. It's thrilling. So imagine someone first you love and respect, you're grateful in your life, something that makes you smile inside, makes you feel warm and kind of uplifted. It can be a person, place, or thing, something you're fond of. That begins to work with the youth or the pineal gland. When you're tuned into the omnipresent energy in the universe that moves through all the dimensionalities, that all things material float in, you'll hear it as a deep humming, a high electrical noise, a single note of a flute, an orchestra, running water in a brook, bells, glass chimes, many things. The energy that comes off the omnipresent energy out in the universe, the zero point or toroidal energy, can be heard more clearly than human ears can hear sound in the physical world. And you become aware of it when you start to hear a humming or a buzzing or around you, and there's nothing making that noise in the physical reality outside your body. That is the first sound behind all creation. It's represented in the word hue, part of human. The nature of that energy is to be supportive of all things. What beings like human beings have done with that energy is to have, for one reason or another in their ancient past, split the consciousness in half to imagine good and bad, a beautiful positive future and an Armageddon, the end of the world, fear of one and love for another. It takes the one purpose of the creative imagination that the spherical or round energy being that you are, we call soul, is meant to do with it. It's meant to create, imagine, feel only that which is of uplifting benefit to all life. This is what we're doing in the hue. It has this ability to turn off subconscious negative drives, programs, and emotion. It takes some doing and getting the knack of it to catch yourself. When you first start feeling depressed, first start feeling negative energy, first start thinking about negative outside of you, the present and the future. You go into the hue, you find from your own experience that it will, of its own nature, shut off those negative things. And then you feel at peace, calm, in serenity of being. That is when you can communicate proper creation into the one living force people pray to. And it will reciprocate dramatically with people when they start sending the right things into it for the right reason. This unites the split in consciousness between sending half the energy in a negative direction and half in a positive, and makes it working with the one energy that is neither, that's behind and supporting all that. How do I know this? Where does this wisdom come from? It comes from the source, from the omnipresent energy, a living energy between all things. I just plug into it. It makes us more bright and more brilliant, and runs more brain cells and brings the high Q through the roof when we're running bodies on Earth or any world system. Again, this needs to be experienced by each individual so that they can own it and know it for themselves. What is it I'm doing? Just making a sound? No, because the creative imagination, I'm seeing into the multiverse and preparing the way for this journey with many other beings who participate co-creatively with me in this process for the good of all life. To be respectful of the source, to have freedom of being in eternity, and the ability to wield the one power itself properly, to have it work through us for our benefit and the benefit of all life, it is required that we know and will respect all the life that's in the multidimensional creation, not just life on one little planet Earth. We are capable of knowing such life because we were such life. None of us, nor did human bodies originate on planet Earth. So where's all that missing history? Your history. Where is it? Imagine being a sphere of energy, round, like a sun or a planet or a moon, brilliantly white core in the center, layers of teardrop shapes in different colors of the spectrum, to a violet exterior with a golden energy field surrounding you. And you will have a correct view of what people call soul actually looks like. It's on the book, The Emerald Doorway, that my company and I published, what we look like. Right in plain sight for the first time on this planet. Literally. You won't find that image anywhere else. You'll find it on the website at paralleltime.com because the books are shown there. And it's described what it is. It's put there so you'll remember. It's a trigger so you can remember what you were made to forget long ago. There is a sound from off-world that goes along with this recovery and a form of protection that is unmistakable. Again, these are only words, so it needs to be experienced. Be near the ceiling, floating above your body. It's easy. Use daydreaming, just like you know how to do since you were a kid. You just imagine being somewhere else doing something while you're walking around, sitting in a chair, having a cup of tea or eating breakfast, or just looking at the mountain range in the distance. When you start to imagine other realities in other places, in history or out in space or in other dimensions, that which is seeing those things is not in your brain, period, at all. Nada, nothing, zip, zero. You don't know this because you weren't trained this way from birth on planet Earth. In reality, you're looking into the multiverse through this hue, through the pineal gland, through the white core of your being hovering above that body, connected to the multiverse, and that energy is connected to other dimensions. It's one energy field on different vibratory levels supporting all of it. One power. And as individual atmas, we're comprised of that same energy, individualized. That's quite permanent. You can destroy a planet, blow up bodies, but you cannot harm the actual living atma that's running such things temporarily. So here you are, floating near the ceiling, looking down on your body. Look kindly down on that physical machine you're running. It's a carbon-based, double-stranded DNA structure, a genetic entity, running at 98.7 degrees Fahrenheit. The brain is not that which imagines. That's not its purpose or function. You hovering above that body, maybe knowing it, maybe not, are what causes imagination to work. So this is easy. Why? You leave your body every night anyway, but most people aren't really aware that's what they're doing. In the back of their mind, they may think that, but they've no training growing up in that young body that had to develop a brain in this lifetime. No training whatsoever that that's what it is they're doing. So it doesn't become a confident thing when they're adults. You have to unlearn what you've learned. That was in, I think, Star Wars somewhere in one of the films. In more ways than those films could reveal, we have to unlearn what we've learned in order to recover who and what we are. The real force is not about good and bad, dark and light. It's about the energy beyond both. So one thing leads to another. Be in the atmosphere above where you live at 10,000 feet up in the sky. Floating there as a spherical radiant energy source. And you look down, all the way down 10,000 feet, and you see yourself, the same thing, duplicated, hovering up near the ceiling over the body that you should have sitting down or laying down with the eyes closed. Why the eyes closed? Because when you close the eyes, it shuts off any output information or visual representation of matter or anything in the world, simply turns it off. That brain is turned off. You don't receive anything from outside. And yet you can imagine. So who or what is imagining? Not the brain that's turned off to the outside stimulus. No. You can be at 10,000 feet and down in your body can hear a truck go by in the street. That's fine. It's okay. The body is still in the trance state we call sleep. What does this mean? It means every single night, each one of you cause that brain, this pineal gland to secrete serotonin, make melatonin. These are substances which cause the body to be able to run on automatic and breathe and heart work and blood circulate when you're gone every night. Some of you bring more back than others of awareness of where you go and what you do. People who are working in deeper fear think they made all those dreams up in their brain. They didn't. People are terrorized on a subconscious level to remember who and what they are and how old they are as a being in eternity. How long they've been around and how many lives and how many worlds. Everybody on Earth today is an extraterrestrial to this planet. I've just told every one of you a fact in truth in eternity. None of us, nor did human bodies, originate on this planet. And if that's true, and it is, where did they originate? It's your history you've forgotten. It wasn't on Earth. Be in outer space above the planet. That's right, just like the space shuttle, only further out in space. So when you look down on the Earth, at first you see the black void you expect to see, right? With all the billions of stars in the Milky Way galaxy. There's the Earth with its polar ice caps, and there's the oceans and the landmass. There's the barren moon, all crater and pockmarked with meteor craters and doesn't turn on its axis. It just moves around the planet without turning. Not normal at all. And off in the distance, our yellow sun. And here we are in space, hovering in space. You don't feel heat, you don't feel cold, you don't feel radiation from the sun. You are an energy that is not radiation from the sun. It isn't cold or heat, and it's not nuclear, it's not atomic, it isn't molecules, it's not atoms, it's not DNA. It's that which runs such things. The reason we are spherical in shape is because planets and moons and suns and stars are round. They are made in the image of their creator. Get it? A human being is not a human body. It is what people have coined and put in front of man or woman, human, long forgetting what it means to work with that energy. In space, you are outside beyond the negative compacted atmosphere of planet Earth. What do I mean by that? It's simple. Every thought and deed done to people, to each other, in all the histories and all the wars and all the dynasties of the history that is known to people today is still in the atmosphere as thought forms backed by emotion that have a wavelength measurable on an oscilloscope that go out into the universe within the atmosphere and bounce off the ionosphere like radio waves. It's all still in the atmosphere. It cannot be stored in this energy out in space. So we are outside of that negative influence for now. Your body's in this trance state called sleep. You're listening to my voice. You're staying conscious so that you're above that body now in space, which you can do every night anyway. But you are out of body traveling and aware of it while the body is no one's home. Here, I ask others from other worlds and other dimensions and master teachers to join us. This is practical. They have most of them have actual bodies, either on ships or on their home worlds. Except, and these are humans, many of them, they know how to get out of their bodies and join us on this adventure. Some of them are Galactic Alliance personnel. That isn't a federation. It is an alliance of hundreds of millions of world systems. 150 million plus in just a little under half of the Milky Way galaxy alone. Already established. Earth is coming to a place where it could be invited to join that. This is what this work is about, why I'm here. These beings are men and women, human. They travel in craft. They're stationed in our solar system right now, not interfering with other space force or other people necessarily, except to quarantine the solar system we're in. To maintain it in this way, to keep tyrant races from coming here and ruining the earth or taking its resources or killing and eating people and all kinds of crazy stuff. That's already a done deal. Such beings cannot come back here. That was not done by people on earth, mind you. And yet, none of those beings who could create such a state beyond earth have tried to take over the earth. None of them want to run the governments on this planet. You couldn't pay them enough money to get them to do it. They're not interested. On the other hand, people on earth have much to discover about their true nature, their true capabilities as beings, and how to happily co-create with vast numbers of beings from other worlds. Step up and take our place among the stars. That will not be done in radioactive warp core driven ships, ever. That's not the energy source to get around the stars. The energy source to get around the stars, by the way, beyond the speed of the artificially created limits of the speed of light in people's minds on Earth, has to be done through the zero-point toroidal energy, which is non-nuclear, not limited by time and space, not even by gravity. And that's just physical universe stuff. So they're in ships. When they go on these journeys with us, they leave their body. A couple, usually a man and woman, will go to the back of the ship, lay down or sit down, go out of their bodies, while 3 other couples maintain control of the ship. And then they join us. Some of these are master teachers. Some of them work in a dimension far above the physical universe every night, whenever they can leave their body, in order to learn more and to help liberate beings called atmas who mistakenly and ignorantly in misdirected ways believe they are bodies and brains stuck on a planet, wondering when they look at the stars if there's life out there. How absurd. How funny it is when you those of us who know understand that none of the beings making those kinds of postulations about if there's life in other worlds did not even originate on Earth in the first place. We are in space where such information, such direct experience telepathically can be awoken within each individual. These beings, Shantial, Tonaltial, Dantiam, and Lamtiam in particular, are from the Galactic Interdimensional Alliance of Free Worlds. That is what it's called in English on planet Earth. There are many smaller organizations within that grand one. The planetary headquarters for that organization is closer to the galactic core of our galaxy. This is a fact. People on Earth are destined to become aware of this. And there isn't any power or people or governments on Earth that can prevent this now, and they know it. I think they want to cooperate with this change. It doesn't mean any will be harmed or shot or put in prison. It's just about changing consciousness for the better for all life. The science to regrow limbs, to fix deformed bodies, these are just genetics, cure disease, remove microbial life that's no longer necessary, that is profuse abundance on the planet Earth in its atmosphere and its water. The ability to take waste, turn it into useful products, never pollute water tables or the ocean. The ability to transform pollutants in the air and in the ground and in the atmosphere is ancient, terribly ancient science out among the stars. It is not new. The beings I work with would provide that at no cost at the right time for people on this earth. It's part of what they do now. And we have to be ready to request it. We have to co-create it coming into reality here. So people in massive numbers need to recover at least the first basics of what they are and what it's like and who they are that is not now nor has it ever been a physical body or brain. Ambassador Turalyon, who's standing in the center of all spherical beings hovering around him like stars around the center of a galaxy, out in space, above and outside of the atmosphere of planet Earth, is 18 feet tall, showing you a body standing there. Looks like a Greek god. Pointed ears like an elf, long, slightly curvy blonde hair, bigger than normal human blue eyes, kind of a tunic gown covering his frame, bare feet with his hands up with a golden sphere of light around each thumb. And that is, if you look at space now, you suddenly realize you can see that it's not black like you've seen in photographs of outer space. It's a white golden light filling that void completely between all things that float in it. 0 point, toroidal, energy of the universe, just names. There is a way to work with that energy. Not only to travel through interdimensional doorways, go way beyond any so-called speed of light. That's just the limits of what physical eyes on Earth can detect. So they've concocted this thing about a limitation of it. It isn't accurate. It's just not. Turalyon is showing you a body, the Say rays, which are human. We get our genomes and DNA for all the body forms that are human on Earth and on many other world systems, and races that are bipedal, 2 arms, 2 legs, that aren't human, that they helped evolve, brought up to spacefaring capability, and then disappeared from what we call the physical universe and the astral, the next major division up, long ago. And they've returned recently. They did what's immortalized their body, but that didn't mean they made it 36 years old forever. It means they dematerialized the atomic structure, the DNA of it, and stored it in a teardrop within the spherical being. And when he wants to mock up a body, he'll derive the energy that surrounds all things that float in it, fill that DNA, mock up a material structure, even a solid body you could touch to carry out a mission, and then he'd dissolve it and store it. He's simply showing us our potential. I have 12-stranded DNA. We have 2. The bodies, I mean. More advanced races of humans from the stars have 4. That can change for people on Earth when the time is right. The Sayres Agenda book is about what is taking place out among the stars recently that no one expected, including the Sayres, and how that's changing creation without destroying planets and galaxies and dimensions, and how Earth is in the middle of that new flow. There's techniques at the back of the Sayres Agenda book that work with the Hue for the prologue and all 29 chapters to assist people under their own initiative to connect in the You and to have experiences like those that I share for themselves. That's why they were written. That's why they're published. The Emerald Doorway that has the image of the Atma right on the front cover, what we look like as beings, is part of a trilogy of books that are written. The first one is published, and it's more about the history, a more ancient history of Earth, going back prior to 100,000 years ago, when the Earth's poles flipped overnight, destroying the lands and rising from the seafloor new land masses we live on today. And there was a new beginning. that would have already happened again, destroyed all life here, not the planet, just what's living on it. Had beings from elsewhere that run the mechanics of creation itself not stopped that permanently. No more polar flips for this planet. It has now the opportunity to take its place. And that's going to mean great change is on the way, unexpected change for this world and its people. Here is where I'm communicating this to all of you out in space, free from the negative effects of the atmosphere, when your body is turned off, basically, and running safely. Subconscious implanted negative programs of fear and terror are not on right now. The beings that work with me out in space here see to it for all of you on this adventure, listening to this, or who will listen to this radio show when it's put up on Perry's YouTube channel. Turalyon, if you look at his 18-foot tall body, smiling at everybody, he has a beautiful spherical form of himself, the atma, hovering above and behind this 18-foot tall form he's showing you. All of you should realize now that you are showing a form to everyone else that looks to be about 36 years old, perfectly, flawlessly healthy in every way. It is pure energy. It's like you're breathing in space, but it's not made of matter. And there's a spherical being, each one of you, hovering above and behind the head of that body, standing there. This is so you give each one of us and to each other a view, impression, a visual of who and what you are, what your character is like. When we're in space, we can go from here any direction we wish. No negative nature whatsoever goes with us. And we move on the omnipresent living hue, the first sound behind creation, this intelligent, supportive, everywhere existent luminous force. And it can connect us instantly anywhere in other worlds and other dimensions, or in the worlds beyond the void, many dimensions above here, according to where we place our focus of attention or imagination. There's a couple appearing here now that come with us on most of these journeys. They go with me to teach in facilities within what's called the U Expansion Ray Academy, which exists beyond the void known to certain esoteric groups on Earth, between the fifth and sixth major dimensions, above the void. These beings from the Galactic Alliance, many of them can help people be free of what are called secondary subconscious misdirecting, terrorizing implant programs that were put in people before they were born here. They are expert at this. They know what they're doing. If you asked for their help when you go put your body to sleep at night, in any way you feel comfortable and safe doing it, they will help you. What happens is your consciousness begins to change when you wake up each morning on Earth. You become more intelligent, more aware. Your IQ goes up. These things are facts. It happens. I pause to consider how far to escort with others like Turalyon and other master teachers who are here with us. We will take you on a journey out of your body. We can go along the past time track. We can go to other planets in our solar system or worlds far beyond it or higher dimensions. What I often find most useful is when we go on a journey through a process called direct projection, the ability of the atma, all of you, not your bodies or brains asleep on Earth, to traverse the multiverse, to bypass the lower dimensions of time and space deliberately, to go into the void, this vast area of pale blue energy that exists above the etheric plane, between it and the first plane of the atma of being, your true nature, in the atma plane. When we hit that energy, we are in a pure positive energy that has no opposites. There's no time and space, no planets, no moons, no suns, no stars. But there are structures floating in this energy field. There is where people can learn most efficiently, not only how to remember and recover who they are, but how to be beneficial to all life along the way. When you look up, Turylyon's pointing that way, and then he points to Earth. And you look up and you see a portal beginning to open. And it looks like a funnel, like a tornado, peaceful, of blue-green luminous light. Looks like water, but it isn't. And you can see a tunnel, a funnel going way up high, and the other end, a pale blue atmosphere, brighter than the light, white golden light surrounding us. And when you look at the Earth, you see it shimmer like a heat wave in a desert. And you can see the Earth now in the same place has no polar ice caps. A big, massive continent centered over the equator. And you can see through the planet. On the other side is another one, 2/3 its size. And there's a moon, oxygen atmosphere, rain clouds, and little rivers and mountains and lakes and domed cities, turning on its axis as it moves around the planet Earth, and in the distance, the yellow sun. This reality we're looking at is in a higher time rate, higher molecular time rate, parallel dimension of the physical universe, 3 levels up from where we are on Earth. And there is a continent called Lemuria and Atla, or Atlantis on the other side, that was never destroyed by polar flips like it was on the Earth you're familiar with 100,000 years ago. There are master teachers that work there from all over the universe and all over the multiverse. It is a protected place. And there are teaching facilities and scientific laboratories there. And they're preparing this Earth and that moon to be what Earth and the moon you're familiar with will become one day. They're going to duplicate it. Think of it as more advanced technology and spirituality, if you will. Then you look up and you see that we are moving as a group around Turalyon, like a galaxy of stars around the center, all of us on this journey. A master teacher named Ramu with swarthy dark skin, curly black hair and beard, maroon robe, a crystal staff held in his right hand, 6 feet tall, with an Egyptian ankh for eternal life there, like a cross with a vertical oval hole, vertical oval donut shape with a hole in the center, glowing with golden light. It's a device. And another being named Master Opelum, who looks to be about 40, about 6 feet tall, black, shiny, smooth hair, long down to his shoulders, emerald green eyes. And he's holding up his right hand, and there's little webs between them. He lifts his neck, and there's 3 little slits on each side. He is human, meaning even people on Earth could mate with them. He's not from Earth. He's from a world that's mostly water covered called Oceania, that's in the 3rd parallel dimension, like this planet we just saw with Lemuria on it. And they evolved with the ability to breathe underwater or on land as human genetic background tied to the Say-Rays long ago, just like we were. And so we're moving up through this vortex, and as we're moving up through it, it's very wide. It's like we're all of us together like the size of a dime to a dinner plate. Moving up this energy, we can see right through it, whirling around us upward. And we can see levels of galaxies, millions of them, passing by below us until they vanish into the distant, dwindle to a point and vanish. We suddenly find ourselves coming out into a pale blue, infinite-looking atmosphere, and the vortex below our feet disappears. We are in an immense, massive depth of energy. Sound of the hue can be heard here. like millions of buzzing bees, and the subtle energy of millions of men and women's voices singing the hue and perfect vocal cords on multiple levels. It's very appealing, very uplifting, but there's nothing apparent of any kind of structure or shape or form here. And we feel like we're moving ever upward at a tremendous speed until you see in the distance we're approaching what looks to be a white, luminous, sandy shore of a landmass. Until we approach it, we see this white sand goes in a perfect line as far as you can see in each direction. And we're moving over the top of what appear to be jungle trees, but they are crystalline in nature, vibrant, transparent, and there's living energy in them. There are birds who are coming out of the trees that fly up to us. They have a special function in helping people remember. They are about a foot long V-shaped split tails, look kind of like a blue jay, rainbow colored bodies, smoothly blended all the rainbow colors of the spectrum, and twin sets of bird wings, one above the other, and they're hovering there like a hummingbird with beautiful deep blue eyes. Rows, dozens of them, female and male, and they begin to talk with us, to welcome us to the land which is called the atma plane above the void. And they have vocal cords, and they begin to sing in the most beautiful, more beautiful than any human vocal cord, the sound of the hue. They're starting to send a channel of it as a white golden light out of their eyes until it whirls around us as a gift. They're telepathic. If you look above the bodies they're showing you as birds, you see a spherical atma just like you, hovering, running it. And then we find ourselves moving over the trees. The birds are guiding us. We go inland until we see down below a round white marble floor with a fountain in the center of it. And in the distance, following a brown moss-covered path, long crystalline structures like a palatial estate set against the long line of snow-capped mountains. And all of us, including Turalyon, are high above this fountain. And when you look at it, it looks like it is made of white alabaster stone, scalloped edges. There's a statue of a man standing in it with bronzed skin, golden eyes, looks to be like someone about 36 from the country of India, but he's not from India. 2 gold bracelets on his upper arms, bare-chested, strongly built, with a white tunic dress from his waist down to just above his ankles, and his palms are open, downward at his sides, and a white golden light is pouring out of them from a circle of this light coming down through the top of the statue's head. It's pouring into the bowl, filling it with a radiant white golden sheet that pours in an even sheet around the outer edges and vanishes in the ground. There's a white sitting, like a white marble seat with a carved legs circling the outer circumference of this fountain. And the being the fountain represents is standing there with his right hand up, greeting us. He sees us all. He knows we're there. His name is Satnam. That just means true name. It means true sound, first sound. So he's a representation in physical form, he shows you, of a personification of something that looks human, but above him is the most beautiful Atma hovering there. He's welcoming you to this place above the void, the original demarcation zone where Atmas left this place to go into incarnation and experience in the lower worlds long ago. If you look at this fountain, it looks like white golden water glowing. And as you look at it, you can see 12 golden cups on golden hooks extending from the scalloped edges around the outer edge of this fountain. and they dip themselves into this mountain and then hover above your mouth, which is an energy form of pure energy. It looks just like you, about 36. It's poured down your throat, and it just radiates through that body, goes up to the top of your head, and into the white core of the spherical being you are hovering there, making it brighter. It filters out through these teardrop-shaped layers, turns some of them on. There's no reason why people on Earth, who it's claimed use 6 to 10% of a fully functional developed brain, should not be able to use 100% of it. This energy of remembering and recall in the atma plane is part of what is provided to help you recover, remember, to know. When you look up, there's another vortex that opens, and it looks like millions of cobalt blue radiant stars circling around a wide opening. And on the other side in the distance, you can see in a cobalt blue, brilliantly luminous atmosphere, what appears to be a huge circular floating landmass. It has a white luminous beach surrounding the entire circumference, but there's nothing else there. There's no planets, no moons, no stars. And we find ourselves suddenly, instantly transported from above this mountain in Satnam's realm to hovering up high in that atmosphere, looking down below us at the center of this floating landmass. And we see 6 snow-covered mountain peaks in a circle. And when you look out into the horizon, you can see way out in the end the white beach surrounding this floating landmass. Everything here creates its own light, including you, including the body form you're showing each of us here. To the left of the western mountain on a lower plateau is a blue glass administration tower. It looks like glass. It isn't. It's transparent. It's this wondrous blue color that rises smooth as glass up to a flattened spherical administration area and then up to a minaret point. It has one of these identical white alabaster fountains in it, but no statue of Satnam. You can see there's a white golden light touching the top of the minaret, comes down the shaft, and it comes down as a spiral of white golden light that fills this bowl, flows over the edges of it in a smooth luminous sheet, and vanishes down the shaft of this tower. You're suddenly inside this administration tower, and it appears to be the size of a soccer stadium inside, quite large. And there are 3 concentric circles of white marble seats, and there are thousands of beings standing on each level in different robes, men and women, atmas hovering above all of them, teachers from all over creation who come here to teach in facilities located on this landmass for people who come here at night when they're out of their bodies to help them remember. Many of them are human, some are not. Some have violet eyes, green eyes, golden eyes, red eyes, snake-like skin without scales. Tall, short, different races of different color. All master teachers are considered to be those people who can best help you remember who you are as a co-creator with the source behind all life. That is why they're here, to co-creatively experience this journey with you. When you look out through the transparent flattened sphere, you can see this, the 6 mountains behind us. When you look down at the base of this administration tower, you can see a white marble floor, hundreds of feet wide, and extending from the outer circumference in straight lines like the spokes of a bicycle tire, white roadways that go all the way to the beach that surrounds the entire floating landmass. The atmosphere is a radiant cobalt blue. When you look into the atmosphere from us hovering above these peaks, above this tower, as we're outside this tower now, hovering up above it, looking down on it, you can see there's a white golden light in between and behind the cobalt blue luminous light of this atmosphere. And it's making a sound that you can hear. It sounds like millions of men and women's voices singing the hue on multiple levels until it blends into one whole, round, vibrant sound. Some of this energy has been moved into you as a pure being here, what you call soul, the atma. And right from here, hovering above the mountains, you look down and see your body all the way back on Earth with its eyes closed. Some of you might be able to see this with eyes open, but it's preferred to have them closed to cut off the outer world so you can see much more than physical eyes can see. So you can see that you're still hovering in the atmosphere at 10,000 feet. You're still hovering in space around Turalyon outside of Earth. And you're hovering near the ceiling above your body, kindly looking down upon that form. You're running. You're letting a little golden white trickle, like a little beam of energy, come from the core of your being, hovering around Turalyon and all these master teachers way up in the Hue Expansion Ray Academy. And you're letting it come down into the top of your head, into the pineal gland, where it brightens it and then expands in a spherical nature, transparent golden white light, past your body until it's about 2 miles wide. And then it continues past that sphere onward for the uplifting betterment of all life. It connects to 3 pyramids on Earth, 2 at the bottom of Earth's deepest oceans, 1 inside the hollowed-out interior of the Himalayan mountain. And they have fountains in them, and they're turned on. And they're connected to a larger pyramid stationed between 2 stable asteroids in our asteroid field, which circles in the orbit of what was a planet between Mars and Jupiter, goes around the sun at high speed. And that pyramid connects this energy to those that have been stationed between individual stars. And then it's beamed upward. This is what's taking place out in the universe beyond the atmosphere of Earth. It's for your benefit, and it's for the benefit of all life, not just life on Earth. With that in your awareness, when you're ready, open your eyes.
Thank you for the journey, Scott.
I know we've been down this road before, but it's always unique and bears repeating, because when people go that far above time and space, they bring back something with them they could not bring back any other way. It helps to change things for the better, particularly when it comes to awareness.
And from the beginning, at the beginning of the show, you mentioned about we should know like the beings runs the body, and the journey will help us to remember that we are the beings that run this body.
Right.
And to read your 2 books too, Scott, and watch the show.
Well, this is the series agenda for those of you who have not seen it. This is about what's going on outside of Earth. This is a mile-long cylindrical ship with an antigravitic light around it, stationed in the ice rings of the planet Saturn. It is not from our solar system. These are scout craft about 30 feet wide with 3 semi-spheric pods underneath with a antigravitic light around it. That's what they call it. But anyway, it has controls on each end. And little oval windows. I don't know if you can see them here.
Yes.
You can just make out little oval windows that are observation windows aboard this ship that circle the outer circumference that are 6 feet long, horizontal oval windows. There's no launch bays, no open doors in this craft. These craft change their molecular time rate up to become part of a parallel dimension at a higher time rate. They're able to pass through the metal hull and then land inside when they lower that rate down. So this is to help people get ready to make contact with a whole organization of world systems this ship represents, one of the smaller ones. There's a technique section in the back of this book that works with the prologue and all 29 chapters. So as an adventure story, published as fiction, because there's only, you can either publish it as nonfiction or fiction. If I publish it as nonfiction, then I have to try to justify everything in here. And it's more important that people have their own experience with what's revealed in here, because then they know. It was a choice I had to make. I don't know if it's the right one or not, but I don't care. This is the Emerald Doorway. This is the first book of the Parallel Time Trilogy, and this is what you look like. This is 100,000 years ago. These are land masses that have come up after the poles flipped of Earth, destroying the ancient continent of Lemuria, most of its colony continent of Atlantis, except for a volcanic island, which grew to a great seafaring colonizing power 70,000 years later before it was destroyed on Earth. Here's this master teacher we met up there with his staff. This is Caleb, Melina. She's got blue skin. She's not from Earth. He's not from Earth. None of them are from Earth. This is an interdimensional doorway to the Atma realm where Satnam is. This is Caleb's ship orbiting, stationarily hovering. These are the anti-gravitic discs which glow, and they're grounded to them so they can fly them through the air. And he's there to introduce these two and this little guy named Etta, who's a silica-based creature evolved on the planet Oceania, where Opelum did in the journey. And they have a tail that glows like bright opal in sunlight, so they can defy gravity and fly through the air as an organic species, very rare. And they're telepathic, they have photographic memories, more courageous than human beings. He would die for you if he had to save you, if you befriend him. What these three don't know at this point, 100,000 years ago, they don't know that one of these is hovering above their heads, and it is who they really are, not these forms. This is about extraterrestrial involvement in our solar system and Earth long ago. There are 2 other books written, and they'll be published in order. So the books were published and put out in the world to assist people to have contact with real experience for themselves. That's why they exist. I'm not doing them to be famous and rich and, you know, all this kind of thing. That's not my motivation. So
Yeah, I'd like to share with our listener that these 2 books are not just books. They are doorways to help you to recall who you are. And you got to read them to experience it by yourself. That's all I can say.
yeah, you have to be co-creatively involved. It's not going to be someone waving a magic spiritual wand and giving it all to you without your effort. Because beings like that want to know that you would keep what they would give you, and it would be permanent. So that's the way they look at us, that we have great potential, but we also have to show them we're capable of recovering what we've been made to forget and keeping it permanently after that. Best way of putting it.
Mm-hmm. And people can check on your website under this video. They are links to them, right?
Well, I could just imagine all the flack I would have gotten had I published these as nonfiction. What people need to understand, if they want to, is that these books and the experiences that I wrote about in them are direct experiences of mine. They are from my direct explorations into deliberately hidden truth. And I put them down with the intent that it would be beneficial when somebody opens them and goes on the adventure. They will be definitely changed for the better permanently, because some of what's revealed happened to them. It's hidden, it's buried, it surfaces, they begin to remember more. And one of the things that's focus of this work is to get people to give up their addiction to focusing on negative things, fear and doubt and uncertainty. They're artificial. They're subconscious misdirecting programs. You can turn them off and you can go in another direction. That's part of how I work with people and how those beings I work with from off planet work with people. I'll leave you all with that.
Scott, I have my Thai channel too here, and because I work with you here, and I work with Thai people from my experience with you, and in my on my side, you know, people people, they are dropping. I mean, they understand better. They have more experience. They drop their fears too. You know, I mean, they start to recall who they are. That's what
Yeah,
I can share with all of you here.
I'm glad you brought it up because people actually have the ability, whether they know they do or not, to turn off this subconscious stuff that controls them now. The first step to that is one understanding what you look like that is not a human body. It's not an astral body that's transparent that looks like this body. Okay, that's actually a solid body on another plane that appears transparent when people first get out of their body in a transition adjustment between physical solidity and astral solidity. So this is stuff people have the ability to remember and recall how it works and what it is by their own direct experience. That's the premise for my work, the basis for it. It's the reason I'm on this world at this time, representing great, vast numbers of beings that are very advanced, who have only the best interests of Earth and its survival into the future at heart. And that's going to require the involvement, the co-creative involvement of all life on Earth. That's going to be some vibrational changes, certainly consciousness changes, where individual beings on Earth begin to remember. They'll just naturally start dropping their attachment to fear and negative things. It's their real nature. Okay, so you'll find the website, paralleltime.com, on the video when Perry uploads it to her YouTube channel. And I wish you all very pleasant dreams and great journeys into awakening.
Yes, we see you next time. Please thumb up, subscribe, and like to our videos. See you next time.
See you next time, Perry. Thanks for having the courage to do this.
Thank you to you too.